You know, we'd really like to think, we'd really like to feel, we'd really like to believe that there's at least one area of life, there's one area of this experience, there's one area of this existence that we could count on to be simply what it appears to be. And yet, the more I learn about this life here in this three-dimensional existence now, in this place that we call Earth, the things that I thought I could take for granted, and I may almost say everything that I thought I could take for granted, I can't take for granted. I'm now beginning to question. I'm beginning to look at. I'm beginning to investigate. And I'm beginning to ask. And I'm getting that sneaky, creepy feeling in the back of the place where your sneaky, creepy feelings show up that everything may not be what we think it is. And you think there's some things that you could just depend on, some things that just are, like history. I mean, history's history, right? It just is what it is. We know what history is. Or do we know what history is? Tonight, we're continuing on our quest, our our study into is history false? And I know that a lot of you, and the numbers show this, a lot of you would much rather be listening to some guy that calls himself the Archangel Michael or talks to the Archangel Michael. A lot of you would rather be listening to somebody channeling Metatron, Megatron, Puff the Magic Dragon, HR Puff and stuff. You'd rather be listening to somebody that's talking about the tribulation and heads being chopped off and trumpets and vials. Oh my. You'd rather be talking about things or listening to things that tickle your ears, that make you feel like, ooh, this is scary. Those things, not only are they lies, but they're not going to help you. They have no nutrients. Those eggs are a lie, Stevie. They got no nutrients. What we're talking about is stuff that you listen to the show at 9, you start working on this at 9:01. That's the kind of things that we talk about. And is history false? Is right up there with some of the most profitable things that you can ask yourself and some of the things that you can put to work right in your life. Tracy Dyer says history probably doesn't matter. Well, it matters if you think it matters. And if you think it matters and it doesn't matter, then it really matters. I see a lot of new names in the chat room. Susan is no longer certain of anything prior to 200 years ago, and even that's stretching it, she says. We're looking into a lot of information. We're looking into a lot of work. We're looking into a lot of talk by a lot of smart people like George Santayana. He made the statement back somewhere between, we think it was 1863 to 1952, or was it just 863 to 952? That's one of the questions we're going to be asking in this. But he said history is a pack of lies about events that never happened, told by people who weren't there. He was an American philosopher. And you would think he lived in 2020. Because when you think about it, history is a pack of lies about events that never happened, told by people that weren't there. And the more I study about it, ladies and gentlemen, the more I come into agreement with. Is today Wednesday or Thursday? Today is Thursday. Dadgummit. I forgot to do something today. St. Augustine, be wary of mathematicians. Clarence Darrow said history repeats itself. That's one of the things that's wrong with history. Ooh, I like that. George Orwell, author of 1984, which is looking more and more like a documentary. Who controls the past controls the future. Okay, but listen to this. Who controls the present controls the past. Ooh, isn't that true? Isn't that true? The more I study, The more I dig in, the more books I read. I'm up till 2 a.m. reading books. It's what I do. I like to do it. I'm here to do the things that you can't do, go the places you can't go, and study the things that you can't study with the intensity that I can, and bring you the information so you can decide what to use in your efforts to unindoctrinate yourself. And it's looking like all of history up until about the 17th century could well be a forgery of global proportions and a falsification that is as deliberate as it is universal, ladies and gentlemen. It's a blatant falsification of history on a planetary scale, motivated by and perpetrated by people that seek to control us and keep us locked into a fear and guilt, most of the time, blood magic control matrix. It's a fear and guilt, blood magic control matrix. And somehow, because we're at heart, most of us are good people. But then we get to the place that most of us that are people are good people. There's a lot of us that are here that aren't people. And you're not good. I'm watching a show on Netflix called V Wars. Ostensibly, it's about vampires and humans. But I watch the parallels. And what they're saying is that there's a lot of us that look like we're humans, act like we're humans, but with the smallest little motivation, we can find out that there's something in us that gets activated that's not human. And that some of us, maybe a lot of us, aren't who we think we are and aren't what we think we are. With that being said, history, ladies and gentlemen, think about it. It has this sacrosanct idea in our minds. Oh, it's history, gravity, things that we just know. But the idea, folks, and the reality is that history is created by humans. History is recorded by humans, not perfect divine beings. And the people that recorded history are people that were brought up in a certain way. They were educated in a certain way. They had certain beliefs. They had certain prejudices. They were led and guided and fed and driven just like we are. These people that were keeping track of history weren't doing it because they loved history. They were doing it because it was their job and they were told to do it. So we've got to understand that history is recorded by people. People are imperfect and people can be tricked and people can be deceitful. And what if our history, or what we know as history, has been recorded and perpetrated by people that aren't even people? We've got real people. We've got organic portals. We got real people. We got walk-ins. We got real people. We got empty meat suits. Who's got the pen? Who's got the paper? Who's on the parchment? Who's inputting the data? Who wrote the history and why? That's what we really have to start asking ourselves. Not so much what does history teach? That's way up here on this level. We've got to say, who recorded it? Why did they write it? Why did they write it the way they did? What motivated them? And it's like the false, fake media today. You can't go on CNN or MSNBC, and I'm sorry, even Fox News most of the time, and get objective data. I'm old, but not that old. 56 isn't old if you're a tree. It's very young if you're a tree. But I can remember times where I could pick up the St. Petersburg Times in my hometown of Clearwater, Florida. I could pick up the St. Pete Times or even the Clearwater Sun, and I could read an objective rendition of a news event without any commentary, without any editorial interjections. I could just read an objective report of the news. We don't have that anymore. And that's just since 1963 when I was born, it's had that much of a change. Can you imagine how much the recording of history and the attitude of people that record history has changed over the history of history? It's people. People lie. People make things up. People make mistakes. People get lazy. You know how it is. You hire somebody to do a job today, and they're going to do the least amount of work possible to still get paid. They're not going to try to do a great job for you. They're going to do the minimum. And what if people today are just like people have always been? What if people today are just like people have always been? And I've kind of got the idea that that is the way it is. And some of the least objective people, let me just remove that qualifier. The least objective people I've ever met are religious people. Religious people are not objective. Religious people are not honest. Religious people are not impartial. Religious people are not capable of objectivity because they already have this lens of how the world works. And everything has to fit within that lens. And if religious people record history, we're getting history recorded through theological colored glasses, and that's not good. Up until the 16th century, chronology, the keeping of records, the keeping of time, was the domain of the mathematicians. Math geeks, I trust. A math geek is impartial. A math geek is objective. A math geek does not care how you feel about 2 plus 2. The math geek doesn't care what you've been taught about 2 plus 2. A math geek does not care what your mom, your father, your sister, your brother, your priest, your preacher cares or says about 2 plus 2. A math geek knows 2 plus 2 equals 4. And they don't care who you are, what you are. They don't care which sky fairy you worship. They don't care because 2 plus 2 equals 4. I trust math geeks. I don't trust religious people. And it was after the 17th century, from the 14th to the 17th century, chronology was handled by mathematicians. After that, 18th, 19th centuries, guess who took it over? The clergy, the church, religious people. So for at least 300-400 years, the people that have been keeping the books are thieves, proven thieves. Contemporary official versions of chronology are full of contradictions and inconsistencies. Why? Because they have been kept by people that are full of contradictions and inconsistencies. That is religious people. Let's take a quick look into the chat room because this is going to be a deep subject matter. I want you to know that from now until Christmas time, we've got a sale on the Mystech bracelets. They're always 30% off, ladies and gentlemen, or 20% off, but now they are 30% off of the Mystech bracelets. So go to jeffreydaugherty.com, click on the Mystech logo, or click on the Mystech tab, and you can get these great bracelets that restore you to the Schumann resonance, that keep your cells in harmony rather than chaos. You've seen the blood work tests on the video, and now at 20% off, they're a great, great deal. At 30% off, they're a ridiculous deal. But you only get 30% off if I only have to handle your request once. That means I get your name, I get your size, I get your color, I get your mailing address, and you pay me through the Donate Now button on jeffreydaugherty.com, and I don't have to ask you to. You do it all at once, you get 30% off, and you'll be glad that you did. jeffreydaugherty.com, Miss Tech logo, Miss Tech tab. Scotty does not believe that they'll be hanging out once the mass collective find out just what has been happening to our children. I believe there will be hanging. Scotty boy, I'm not one for lawlessness. I'm not one for vigilante justice generally. But when people find out what the church has been doing to our children, what the governments have been doing to our children, those are really just two wings in the same bird. It's going to get ugly, and it's going to get ugly quick. I agree with you, and I hope that the pedophilia revelations are handled in a way that we try to keep the lid on that. We can't have innocent people getting railroaded. We've got to make sure we handle it in the right way. Yeah. Punishment's supposed to be a deterrent to crime. And yet now we can't even do the deterrence because we're violating people's rights. They're criminals. They're crooks. You break the law, you go to jail. That's the way it goes. Most of the population, it's speculated in the chat room, don't want to see what's real. It's too scary for them. It's probably true. We're not most of the population. We're going to force them to show us, and then we are going to act appropriately. A lot of people are delusional, says Joyce. Are you serious? Absolutely. And, Hillary Clinton said during the last election cycle, if that SOB wins, we'll all be swinging from ropes. And it's only the humanity of President Donald Trump and the fact that I think he's extracting a lot of information from a lot of them that has kept their feet on the floor. But if I was them, I wouldn't push him. I would not push him. Scotty Boy says there's so many good people without a clue and not even interested in finding out why. Yes and no, Scotty. There are a lot of people, I think, that don't have a clue, but how good can you be if you never seek out a clue? They're not even interested in finding out why. Is that, and I'm just speculating, I'm just asking the question, is that a possible indication of a lack of soul? Is that a possible indication of perhaps an organic portal? We have this idea that all organic portals are Hannibal Lecter. I say not necessarily so. Some of these organic portals might be more akin to the NPC that just walks around without any connection to anything. So people that don't have a clue, people that aren't even interested, it is still sad, Scotty Boy. But is it sad because there are people that are wasting their potential, or is it sad because we've got organic portals, we've got NPCs, we've got empty shells, we've got walk-ins that have walked out and left the lights on, but nobody home? That's very, very, very interesting. Power must come back to our small communities again. I agree with that. I think that's very, very important, and I think a very, very profound statement. Let's see, what else have we got in here? I just want to keep up. The Vatican's built over a temple. All of the Roman Catholic edifices are built over temples. They want to take advantage of that great energy that is there in the earth. And let's see what else. We just did the show that the Vatican is on the place of Nero's circus. Oh, you've got to watch that show. You've got to watch that show. It's just when you think that something, there's no way it can be true, it is. And just when you think it can't get worse, it does. Not worse in the sense that things are getting worse, but you learn things that you thought could no way possibly be true, and boom, they are. And we deal with it. Dwayne says, how much of history is false? All of it. Well, it can't all be false because things did happen, but it's possible for everything that we've been told to be false. Absolutely. Let's rock and roll. Hoochie Coo, says Mr. B. I'm with you. We've got some talking about the mud flood. Absolutely. I am reading Fomenko. That's why you can't study history if you don't read Fomenko. You just can't. And I wanted to let you know on Monday night, we've got a big special coming up. On Monday night, we're going to be joined by Jay Campbell. My old buddy Jay will be back here at 9 p.m. on Monday night, 9 p.m. Central. And we're going to talk about all kinds of cool stuff. We got a show coming up with Tim Kelly. Tim Kelly deals with different kinds of medicines. We've both been done bad by a guy that wears a beanie that we won't talk about in names. We've got that in common, except Tim didn't get automatic weapons pointed at him, at least that he knows of. So we're going to be talking about these medicines. And I'm not a big medicine guy, but if there is something that can help people that are bound by heroin almost instantaneously, I'm into, and I'm open to exploring it. So we'll be talking about that with Tim. We've got Jay Campbell coming on. We got a lot of other great programs coming up, and it's getting better. It's getting better, and we're gonna start. People want to talk about Tartaria. I don't know. Yeah, we'll get into that too, but right now we're just concentrating on history. What is it? Carmen says she used to like history. Now it's a mystery. It really is. Matthew says we all make our own history. I like that idea. Let's see what else we got. Politicians still to this day get caught about lying about things that didn't happen. Absolutely. Have you read the newspaper lately, ladies and gentlemen? What else we got? Delaney in the house, as always. Nice to see you there. Commandments were for controlling the masses, period. Kramer, give yourself a pat on the back. Whoops, sorry about that. You're absolutely right. In history, you think that you could depend upon something like history, but you can't depend upon history. History itself has been altered. History itself has been played with. History itself has been fiddled with and fooled with. People make history. We've got to remember that people are flawed. And I find it so interesting that the real scholarly questioning of history really happened early in the 20th century, because they were trying to figure out how to go to the moon. And I'm not here to give you a history lesson. I sort of am, but they were trying to figure out on how to get to the moon. And ostensibly, you had the Soviet Union trying to figure out how to get there first, and the United States trying to figure out how to get there first, and their scientists, and some had the Nazis, some had, and they were trying to figure these things out, how to get to the moon. They really wanted to go. Now, whether they went there or not is not the subject of this program, but have you seen the stuff? I don't know if we ever went, but we didn't go with the stuff they said we went with. That's just my opinion. But yet, it takes a lot of math if you want to go to the moon. Tons of math. And what they found, both Russian, and of course I should say Soviet, because all Soviets weren't Russians, and all Russians weren't Soviets, but the Soviet scientists and the American scientists were finding out that you got to look at celestial bodies, and you got to figure out how things work. You got to figure out how things did work, and you start looking at eclipses. You start looking at chronological events, and all of a sudden, they started realizing that event A, we're told, happened at time B, but the math says that event A was actually at time C. And all of a sudden they realized, these scientists, these number geeks, and remember, I trust number geeks, they said, wait a second, we're told this was happened then, but it couldn't have happened then because the math says it happened here. And scientists, both Soviet and American, we're coming to the conclusion that chronology of ancient history as we know it can't be trusted at all. It's good to know that I can trust my friends at Fluffy. Focused Life Force Energy. My friends at Fluffy, I know that every day I've got that fluffy environment beamed to my phone. I know that every day that fluffy environment is in my home. I know that I'm going to have a more nurturing environment. I know that I'm going to have a frequency and a harmonics that is conducive to me being the best I can be, and I trust it. And it's been profound in my development mentally, physically, and emotionally. I encourage you to go to the jeffreydaugherty.com and click on that fluffy logo. And I encourage you to try the 15-day trial on your phone. Try the 15-day trial on your home. You don't even have to leave a credit card, folks. That's how confident they are in their product. I think you're going to love it. I think you're going to sign up, and don't worry, it costs you way, way, way less than your habit of going to a mediocre coffee shop and getting a mediocre cup of coffee, and it will change your life. jeffreydaugherty.com. FLFE, Focused Life Force Energy logo. Church people writing history according to their church lenses. Mathematicians saying, wait a second, something ain't right. Do you understand how big that is? How long have we been lied to? And how much of the lies have been used to foster dependency in us? How much of the lies about history make up this fear and guilt blood magic control matrix that we're living under? And if math guys that know no love but numbers, they don't get, I'm just going to be plain, it's late at night. Math guys don't get erections by watching good looking girls. Math guys get erections from looking at a sexy equation. And they're looking at these sexy equations and they're getting erections and it's not adding up and they're feeling really guilty and gross. But meanwhile, we're sitting back here saying, wait a minute, what the heck is happening? One of the great historians is, and I wish I could say these names. I practice, but it's Thucydides, 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 the T guy, Mr. T. Mr. T, his history could be off by centuries, ladies and gentlemen, by centuries. The history as we know it may be off by centuries, ladies and gentlemen, by centuries. And as these math dudes started studying, they found out that calendar times and locations of dates are almost arbitrary. That means they're just making things up, ladies and gentlemen. And they made things up about stuff that happened a long time ago, relatively recently, after the church took over. Our version and the version of chronology that we have today, it wasn't even the only version of chronology. There was a fight among math geeks. And we've been told that all math geeks believe the same thing. The truth is, there's been a fight throughout history about math geeks, or between math geeks that do history. And mainly it's the religious math geeks against the non-religious math geeks. And this caused non-religious math geeks to say, look, we've got to radically revise our history. We got to take a look at the whole thing over again. Does that bother you in the chat room? Does it bother you to throw out what we think we know about history and just start over again? I'm asking that question. I want to see what we've got in the chat room. Does it bother you to just start over again with history? Sergio says none of it ever made sense to him. He got the chills when he was at 5 and he walked into a cathedral in the UK. Kevin Kelso. Would you spell the historian you referenced chromatically, Andre? It's Anatoly Fomenko. Anatoly Fomenko. Anatoly Fomenko. Yeah, a lot of people are saying, yeah, let's do it. Let's throw it all in the garbage. Let's restart. Let's count again. And like Jim Williams says, math is like the text. It just is what it is. They don't care. They don't care. The only way to know true history is to realize that the history we know is not true. Sean says, it's just like getting married over again. The next one's going to be as bad as the first one. Yeah, that's, you got a point there. You got a point there. But there's math guys, ladies and gentlemen, that spent many, many years to recognize, to identify, and to recodify into a objective empirical manner dates and times. And we're going to talk about what these math guys have studied, how they studied, and what they have concluded. And we're going to make our own decisions. Do we want to believe the guys in dresses, or do we want to believe the guys that weren't wearing dresses and said, yo, you guys in dresses are wrong? Here's a classic example. And this was brought up by Michel Guillot, The History of Chemistry. I think it might be a guy like Michel, or it could be a girl, I don't know. But here's a conundrum, and this is a good one. One often comes across accounts of a steel chisel found in the external masonry of the Great Pyramid of Cheops, which is dated to the XXX century BC. Is that the 30th century BC, or is that the 300th? I don't know what X's are. I think X's are X's 10 or 100? They're 100, aren't they? 300 centuries BC. However, we tell ourselves that it is indeed more probable that the tool was put there at a later age when the pyramid stones were pillaged for building purposes. Now that makes sense, but are we sure? Do you think that maybe some of the things that we find laying next to each other might have been from the same times and not because of strange circumstances? It's worth a thought, ladies and gentlemen. It's worth the thought. It's worth the consideration. And when you think about the people that have been in charge of chronology up until now, the church and the government, are there any two groups of people you trust less than the church and the government? I don't. And I think that their work needs to be checked more than anybody else's work needs to be checked, because I just don't trust them, ladies and gentlemen. I just don't trust them. But I do trust my friends at Hero Soap. I trust them to keep me smelling clean. I trust them to keep me feeling fresh. And I trust them to give me the best soaps made by veterans, giving back to veterans. And I trust that you'll go to jeffreydaugherty.com and click on the Hero Soap logo. It's an American flag. You'll get a great discount and you'll get a great product, Hero Soap. And as you're unindoctrinating yourself, you're really, it's much more fun to be unindoctrinated when you smell good. So go and try the Hero Soap. It does make a great gift throughout this holiday season. And Mr. Fomenko suggests that since Roman chronology, both ecclesiastically, because the Roman Church has been in charge for the longest time, and Roman governmentally, because they've been in charge for the longest time, that we should take a special look and have special consideration of Roman chronology. That makes a lot of sense to me. To look at Roman chronology, and the chronology of ancient and medieval history in its present form was created and for the most part concluded in a series of fundamental works between it's all in Roman numerals, 16th and 17th centuries, that begins with the work of some guy named Scaliger. He's called the founder of modern chronology as a science by the modern chronologist E. Bickerman. Okay. And then you've got this other guy named Gerhard Friedrich Miller, who revised Roman history in the 18th century in accordance with Scaliger's scheme. So you got Russian history, you got American history, and it all goes back to this guy named Scaliger. Kind of like Gallagher, the guy that smashed the watermelons and stuff on stage. And this will make you feel warm and fuzzy. To quote the prominent contemporary chronologist, guys that keep history, E. Bickerman, he says, there's been no chronological research ever conducted that could be called exhaustive and conforming to modern standards. Folks, here we are 2,020 years in, or 1,020 years in, or whatever you say we're in, and nobody's ever objectively, empirically studied it. You know what my fear is? I'll tell you what my fear is, and that's not really a fear. It's more like a feeling. These guys, and mainly guys, we won't blame it on gals, mainly guys, they have screwed up history. They have screwed up time just as badly as they've screwed up religion. They've used the same scholarship, they've used the same objectivity, and they've used the same integrity on producing our modern religious system, in producing our modern chronology and history system. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to help you learn to unindoctrinate yourself from religious indoctrination. And it's beginning to look like we don't know the half of it, because the other half of it is historical indoctrination. This can actually make you feel hopeless in a sense. And Jeannie brings up Jeannie brings up the Jesuits, and guess what religious group of people took over the work of chronology from the mathematicians? It wasn't just religious people. It was the damn Jesuits. The Jesuits took over dating, chronology, history. The Jesuits took over spirituality, religion, morals. And look at the world they've produced. Folks, you simply cannot afford to go with the flow any longer. You can't afford to just believe what you're told any longer. You have to, if you want to be a responsible human being, if you want to be an intelligent human being, if you want to be a real human being, you've got to start questioning every single thing. And if it has anything to do with Jesuit, you've got to get rid of it. It's deceptive. And I know I come back to this every time, but anything that has to do with a cross, Jesuit. Anything that has to do with sacrifice, Jesuit. Anything that has to do with blood sacrifice, Jesuit. Anything that has to do with salvation, atonement. Anything that has to do with inviting a spirit of Jesus or Father to live in your heart, it's Jesuit. It's blood-based. Anything that has to do with eschatology, last days, end times, raptures, tribulation, second comings, Jesuit. Jesuit. And the best way to get your comments deleted is to say, why are you deleting my comments? Guaranteed. You think that you can pick and choose from the Jesuit smorgasbord, and this is bad, but this is good, and this is okay, but that's really bad. It's all bad if it's Jesuit. Don't eat it. Don't drink it. Don't believe it. Question it. But Jeff, I'd rather watch who gets voted off the island. I know you would. And if that's what you feel, you ought to ask yourself, am I a real human? Am I a real human, or am I an organic portal? Am I a real human, or am I an organic portal? History has remained predominantly ecclesiastical for centuries, and for most part was written by the clergy. The foundations of modern chronology were laid by Eusebius, church father, Pamphilus, and Saint Hieronymus, allegedly in the 4th century A.D. In the 4th century A.D. Now, I know that a lot of you don't know a lot about art. I know that a lot of you don't know a lot about what things look like. But for those of you that really are interested, and for those of you that really do want to study and that really do care, I'm going to show you a painting of Eusebius. Eusebius is supposed to have been really, really, really old. Eusebius was supposed to have lived. When was Eusebius supposed to have lived? I dropped this out of my notes. When did Eusebius live? Did Eusebius live? When did Eusebius live? Eusebius lived in 263 AD. 263 AD. There's a painting of Eusebius, ladies and gentlemen. There's a painting of Eusebius. And I'm going to show you this painting of Eusebius. And you tell me if this is a guy that lived 300 BC or not. I'm going to see if I can blow this up for you. It's not going to be a great one, but I'm really not trying to spoon feed you. I'm trying to give you a motivation to go look for yourselves and see if this is how people dressed in that time frame. And I'm not going to be able to do it, I don't think. This thing isn't going to blow up for me. I'm using the Kindle, and I don't think it's going to blow up for me really well. I'll give you what I can. This is supposed to be Eusebius, ladies and gentlemen, 300 BC. You tell me if this dude looks like a dude from 300 BC. Here he is, ladies and gentlemen, Eusebius, 300 BC. If you know anything about the dress of the time of 300 BC, and if you know anything about the dress of the Renaissance period, medieval period, let me give you a little clue. This is not 300 AD dress. This is medieval dress. This is, it just is what it is. Why would they paint a guy that lived in 300 BC, allegedly, like he lived during the medieval period? This was painted in like 1455, we're told. And it looks like a guy in 1455. Just something to ponder, ladies and gentlemen. Was Eusebius really 300 BC? That's up to you, ladies and gentlemen, to decide what you think about it. And there's more of these paintings of people that are supposed to be 300-400 BC, and they look like they stepped, right out of the medieval times, right out of the Middle Ages. Folks, you got to wonder, What the heck is going on? And oh, by the way, do you know when the first time the work of Eusebius was published was in? 1544. 1544. And a fellow named Nicephorus Callistus attempted to write the new history of the first 3 centuries. And he tried this in the 14th century. He wanted to revise the history of Eusebius, but all he could do was repeat that which was written by Eusebius, who was only published in 1544, which is after the writings of Nicephorus. And you have to wonder, could the ancient writings of Eusebius have been based on the works by Nicephorus? You start pulling strings, ladies and gentlemen, and the whole thing starts unraveling. I'm going to show you one more painting because it just blows my mind. There's a painting here. It's a painting by Cesare Nebbia and Giovanni Guerra. I can't pronounce those names. It was created in the late 1500s, and it shows a scene of Saint Jerome and his pet lion visiting, ladies and gentlemen, the library of Eusebius. And when you see this, you're going to be reminded of Renaissance paintings. You're going to be reminded of things that are 16th, 17th centuries. The books on the shelf are 18th, 19th century books. And yet it's supposed to represent St. Jerome, Eusebius, 300 BC. You tell me why they painted things this way, ladies and gentlemen. Tell me why they painted things this way. Look at these books. 300 BC, they'd have been scrolls. Look at these dudes. Inkwells and stuff. Look at the books. That's not 300 BC. That's not 300 BC. Oh, Jeff, it's just artistic license. Is it? So all of these things are consistently artistic license? Maybe. Let's close with this. Modern chronology has been based and is still based on interpretations of numeric data collected from the Bible. Let me get this right. History, math, objective numbers. It's based on the Bible, which is subjective literature. And it wasn't until somebody tried to use real math and apply it to real history. They took real math and applied it to accepted history and found out that it wasn't real. Not only does the falsification of chronology prove that history is a lie, it proves that the Bible is a lie. And the Bible's wrong. And that's really the big, hairy secret of why we can't talk about history. We can't question history. Oh, you're stupid. You're questioning history. Because to question history is to question the Bible that it's based upon, ladies and gentlemen. The basic dates used as reference points originated from the scholastic exercises with biblical numbers. Eminent chronologist J. Usher, Christian theologian, apologist, says the world was created on Sunday, the 23rd of October, 4004 BC, but wait, there's more, at like 1 or 2 in the morning. The world was created on Sunday, 23 October, 4004 BC in the small hours of the morning. Really? Secular quote-unquote chronology of the present day is largely based on the scholastic, biblical, Jewish chronology of the Middle Ages. E. Bickerman, a contemporary historian, is perfectly right to note that the Christian historians have made secular chronology serve ecclesiastical history. Let me reread that in the JDV, the Jeffrey Daugherty version. Jesuit historians have forced secular chronology to serve ecclesiastical history. The compilation made by Hieronymus is the foundation for the entire edifice of chronological knowledge. The founding father of modern chronology as a science has attempted to reconstruct the work of Eusebius, a church father, based on the datings of Eusebius that often got transcribed erroneously in manuscripts. Really? And they want us to believe that history is beyond question because they want us to believe the Bible is beyond question. Jeff, you already made me question the Bible. Now you're going to make me question history itself. Yeah, I am. Only if you want to unindoctrinate yourself. Only if you want to be a real human. It is heavy, Mark. That's why I'm stopping. I know it's heavy. But work is heavy. Rowing your own boat is heavy. Just going merrily down the stream, that's easy. Following pseudo history, that's easy. Thinking for yourself, questioning, searching, determining, learning, that is, ladies and gentlemen, hard work. We've been lied to. We've been cheated on. It's like a country song. History is a mystery, but it's really not a mystery when you think that history is based upon church people telling us not only what happened, but when it happened. Sergio Love says, wow, we actually know nothing, but what's for sure is that they've been lying and shaping the lie since God knows when. Right you are, sir. Right you are. You know, somehow I should feel overwhelmed by this. Somehow I should feel like, what's the use? Just throw my hands up. But I feel strangely empowered. I feel strangely energetic when I realize that we have discovered another lie. I feel like we're closer to the truth. When we have discovered another controversy, I feel like we are closer to the reality. I feel when the veil of air lifts from my brain, I'm able to hear and feel and get through to truth even easier and better. This doesn't freak me out. This turns me on. This doesn't blow my mind. It empowers my mind. And I don't feel lonely, hot damn it. I feel good like James Brown. I really do. Only better because I'm alive and he's dead. The chronology whistleblower. This is Fomenko's work. We're just bringing it out. This is Joe Atwell's work. We're just bringing it out. And everything we know is a lie. Everything we know is a lie. But let me encourage you with something as we leave. If we were easy to defeat, if we were not really that formidable, they wouldn't have to lie to us about everything. The more lies that we discover, makes us realize how powerful we are. The more conspiracies that we uncover makes us realize how smart we are, how special we are. Because they know the only reason that you have to make everything a lie is because you can't afford for people to know even one truth. Because when we know truth, truth awakens in us and we start hungering for truth. And then all of a sudden we get the frequency of truth, and the frequency of truth attracts other truth. And the frequency of truth attracts other people that like truth. And all of a sudden, you've got this growing momentum. Yeah, it's only 40,000. These crazy people, these liars, they got 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, hundreds of thousands. But we've got 40,000 plus. And we've got the frequency and the resonance of truth. And it's building. And it's attracting and it's expanding. And as Jennifer says, we're destined for this. Jim Williams says, but Jeff, is a true history out there somewhere? I don't know, but the true future is right here and right now. And we can build it based on our terms, not theirs. And I was talking with Tim Kelly, the medicine guy, and he talks about this one medicine that resets you. And whether we do it with a medicine, and whether we do it with just our minds, and he talks about this medicine resets your serotonin reuptake inhibitors. It gets everything reset. That's why you don't go into detox. We'll talk about that, but that's what we need. We just need to be reset. We just need to have all the air flushed so we can start over with a tabula rasa, a blank slate, a mindset change, or a mindset reset. That's what we need. We just need to hit the reset button, clear our cache, defrag our hard drive, hit reset, and start over fresh. We can do that. That's not hard. We can do that. It's not difficult. Be encouraged. Be excited. Oh, Raw 10, you are brilliant. You Control Alt Delete, and let's get going. Raw 10, you are brilliant. He says, and this is an example of and this is so well that you did it. Damn it, I'm sorry I keep hitting that thing. I know that's got to be loud because it's loud in my ear. There's this saying in Christianity that's the greatest trick the devil ever did was convince us that he didn't exist. The greatest trick the devil ever did was to convince us he didn't exist. And of course, that's silly. And I'm going to say it's stupid Christian talk, but Raw 10 says the greatest trick that Jesus ever did was convincing the world that he did exist. That is really, really good stuff. Perhaps even history is an occult science. Maybe, and maybe. I love it. Defrag our minds. Ladies and gentlemen, we are the last generation of real humans. There's only 40,000 of us here, but just of us that are here, we can win today, and we can write a better tomorrow. We are winners. And all it takes is guiding your own spirit, mastering your own ascension, and being your own guru. All it takes is realizing you're divine, you're sovereign, and free. All it takes is realizing that you're not filled with original sin. You've got the spark of divinity within. You don't need anybody to come back and save you. You don't need anybody to fill you. You're full of divinity. You don't need anybody to save you. You'll do your own saving. You're not waiting for your ship to come in. Get ready and swim out and meet it. You're a winner. And this is the time for winners. 2020 is your year. 2020 is my year. 2020 is our year. Nothing to fear. There's never been a better time to unindoctrinate yourself.